So the project management process is broken down into various phases. A lot of times when we think of medtech development, we move right to the launch and execution phase, but there are 5 phases that we have to keep in mind. The first is concept initiation. The second is definition and planning. The third, which I just mentioned, is launch and execution that we mostly focus on, especially as engineers and designers and owning a business. The fourth is performance and control, and the fifth is project close. One key piece with project management is making sure to pay attention to the earlier phases of concept initiation and project planning. This can save valuable time and resources down the line. If you take the time up front to have a solid plan in place, then you know where to go back to if anything goes offline. And during launch and execution, you'll have an exact plan set of how you're going to spend your time, money, and resources. So project management is broken into different phases. It's a process. It's not just launch and execution, which we all tend to focus on. The first phase is concept and initiation. During this phase is a lot of the planning, and you would typically create a project charter. A project charter is really a summary of what you have in your strategic plan and your operational plan, so it shouldn't be anything new, but it will really focus your team on what they're doing, why they're doing, and how they're going to do it. Especially if you have high-level milestones, you would want to set those in a charter. The second phase is definition and planning. During that, you're going to talk more details about your scope and budget. Once you know what you're doing and how you're going to do it, you're going to get more detailed about how long that's going to take and how much it's going to cost and how many people and what type of people you're going to need. You're going to define that all in your project plan, which could be in a Gantt format, which lays out the timeline against the tasks that need to get done. You'll also want to create a communication plan. Who needs to know what and when, and how you're going to communicate that to them. At different times, you're going to need to communicate to your shareholders, to your internal teams, to your external partners that you're working with. So putting a rough plan together, whether you're going to report out to them quarterly, weekly, monthly, whatever it may be, having a rough plan and who's going to do that communication will be helpful to keep you on track to make sure you keep up with those. The last piece during definition and planning is risk management. Identifying upfront your risks early will help you along the way to mitigate them, because if you know your risks are X, Y, and Z, and these are potential mitigations for X, Y, and Z, then you have that up front and you can be proactive about it and not reactive. During the third phase of launch and execution, this is where you're executing on your plan. You'll be doing ongoing status and tracking. So if task A says you're going to do something by a certain date, you're going to want to hold yourself accountable and the people working with you accountable to that. So you're ongoing tracking that and monitoring it. KPIs, key performance indicators, these are key, especially if you're working with external partners. These may be part of contracts you're working with. Key performance indicators can talk about, if they miss a date, what happens? Is the payment structure the same? So you'll want to keep those in mind as you're working with external people and your internal teams. The other piece are quality and forecasts. So you're going to want to make sure that you're continuing to execute with the highest quality. In forecasts, even though your operational plan was set, you may do it once a year, twice a year, you're going to want to continuously revisit that to make sure that you still need the same time, money, and resources that you did. And I can tell you from now that'll be changing over time. It's never set it and forget it. These things are continuously need to be monitored. The fourth phase, performance and control, you're going to, again, want to be just tracking and monitoring and reporting against what you said you were going to do. And in the fifth, project close, it's always a good idea after you complete something to complete a postmortem, lessons learned, so that you can carry those through to the next project or the next phase of your development for your company, to just all share what went well, what went wrong, just share those learnings and really capture them. And then there'll always be a punch list. There's always going to be, the project's done, but we need to do X, Y, and Z to close something else out. So you want to keep that punch list active until it's all done. And the last piece of project close is reporting. Again, you're going to need to report out, how did it go? If you have shareholders and you said you were going to spend the money a certain way, you're going to want to make sure you report back to say, this is what we did, this is what we said we were going to do, this is what we did, and this is what's still left to do. There's another link here for the a Smartsheet resource that goes into even more detail and provides free templates and tools for each of these phases and each of these deliverables that we talked about.